Let's face it, parenting is the most important job on earth. Every day presents a stack of different challenges, and more often than not, the answer is outside of the box. On this podcast, we will offer proven strategies, interview pioneers in education, give insights into how to be successful parents, and even share our imperfect experiences of being parents ourselves. We're all in on this journey, and we will span the globe to find out what is working and who has the answers. This is the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast. Here are your hosts, Darren McCarthy and Brian Powers.
Welcome, Terrie Nolan from Learning Ally. Terrie, you're the VP for Educator Initiatives there. Just tell us a little bit more about you, your background. We're really glad to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. My background, I'm going to tell you what, Brian, Darren, if you looked at my resume, you would have no clue that I got into the field of education because it's all about my degrees were in criminal justice. So I spent a lot of time in prison, not because I committed a crime, because I did some transition work for people in prison. But then I got into the field of education. And I'm going to tell you what, it was really transformative around, my thinking, my understanding. I started out in preschool. I was a preschool teacher, became a preschool administrator, and I was trying to teach kids to read. And guess what I did? I put tracing papers in front of them, and I was having them trace the letter A. I had no clue about how to teach kids to read. And then got hired on at Learning Ally. And I'm going to tell you what, when I found out the way that you need to teach kids to read, there was this sense of guilt. What did I do to those poor kids?
Sure.
They had a better teacher than me.
Yep. No, definitely. And kind of looking at, your website, talk a little bit about kind of what you guys provide. I see solutions not only for school, but for home and for parents, especially. Maybe give us a little overview there.
Yeah, definitely. So Learning Ally, we're a national nonprofit organization, and we've been around since 1948. A lot of people really don't know that we've been around for so long. And all of our solutions that we offer for school, for home, is all around supporting students that learn differently, supporting students with dyslexia, supporting students with reading deficits. And one of our core components that we have a solution, our audiobook solution. So you've got kids sitting in classrooms that can't decode words, but they're expected to keep up with classroom assignments. And that can be done with the human-read audiobook. So we've got volunteers that come in and share their voices and their expertise and record books that align to all curriculums that are out there and provide students this access to keep up with everything they're doing in their core classes.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's great to see, using technology to kind of advance that reading process. And I think people, they kind of forget that it all comes together. There's a visual component, there's an auditory component, and it's one of our mentors who now, Gail Moyers, she believes in reading, actually seeing the movie sometimes before you read the book, so that you have that visual piece to hold on to what you're reading. And it's been an interesting approach. And so, are you seeing that as well? You use the technology to kind of advance that reading piece, not leave it behind and replace it, but to advance it, right?
Oh my goodness, Darren, you're so on track there, because for a struggling reader, what's happening for them is I can't decode the words. So I never move over into comprehension. I never move over into visualization. And visualization is huge when you're a reader. So what happens is because I can see the words on the screen of the device I'm using, I hear the human voice that carries such meaning, and I can start to visualize and make movies in my mind. And then I'm able to hold on to what the understanding is about.
Well, it's been an interesting take. I think so I have a few students, out there in the nether space. And what's interesting is like several of them are artists. And so the conversation has been, when you're strong visually and you can create a good picture in your mind, and you do that with a word that you don't decode properly, it changes the entire meaning of the whole thing, you know. And I think there's so much focus on kind of the comprehension and the outcome. We forget a lot about how we get there, right? Are you seeing that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I tutor some students now, and I do that mainly, well, to help the students, but because I like to stay connected to the teaching piece for the role that I have here. And so I did this with a student. She was decoding a sentence, and let me tell you what, she was really having trouble with miscues of, like, the sentence was, the girls were wrapped up in a blanket. She read it as the girl was wrapped up in a blanket. Just that simplicity of going from girls to girl changed her whole understanding of what that sentence was about. And so that, I helped her to understand that those little miscues, then when you go to take a test about your comprehension, and the question is how many girls were there or whatever it was, she's going to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, and are you tying into like the necessity for families to keep reading, like to read at home? And I know, you know, Brian's a dad of 3, I'm a dad of 2, and you know, in the early stages when they're little and they don't run away from you, you know, you put them on your lap and you read, and now they want to run. And I think it's just as important to keep reading with them, right?
Oh, 100%. You know what? I mean, the act of reading and getting lost in books. You know, I think especially in times like today, where when we went into quarantine back in March, and my youngest was a senior. So, you know, he missed the end of his senior year. But I'm going to tell you what, I just got hit across the face with, we're at home. He didn't bring any of his books home. We had gone out for spring break. He never went back to school. And I looked at my bookshelf and I was almost embarrassed because we didn't have books on the bookshelf that he could be reading. You know, I mean, it really was just hit me. And I thought, my goodness, think about all these families that don't have access to books, and that core component of reading. It's about connection and relationship.
Right, and it's a direct correlation to, like, when you learn a foreign language, you have to integrate or immerse yourself in the language, right? And so you can't just do a reading program or an app that's going to fix the problem, you know, and then not do the reading, right? Brian, what have your kind of travels been in the reading world with your 3?
No, I mean, they're not turning away from it, thankfully. But it's yeah, my oldest I passed on my kind of need for the visual to him. And he's very good at it, but again, it can get, like you said, kind of caught up and misinterpreted a lot of times, especially if he's reading maybe a little bit above where he should be. Maybe walk me through that. Like, I bring you my 9-year-old and he's interested, we're interested in kind of doing this and working with the solution. What are like the first steps?
Yeah, so the thing is, we're a nonprofit organization, and the books that we are allowed to record, we get from publishers, and publishers have to allow us to do that because of copyright law. So it is for the students that are identified at school or in a home situation that have a reading deficit. So that's the first thing. They've got to have a reading deficit, or students that are blind or visually impaired, or have some kind of a physical disability where they can't hold a book, turn the pages of a book. So the largest category of students that we work with and serve are those students that, I can't decode words, my fluency, I don't have the right fluency of what needs to happen when I read. My comprehension is compromised. So then when either a school or a family purchases the Learning Ally audiobook solution, then they get their kids loaded up, they download an app, and now I just download books and start reading.
So, I mean, do they have to physically have like a Woodcock Johnson or some kind of assessment that this portrays that? Or
no, absolutely not. And that's where we really want to get this information out, is that, like, those formalized assessments that, place you into special ed where you've got, an IEP or you've got 504 accommodations, those are just legal and procedural things.
Mhm.
We want to get to students that are already showing those deficits in that gen ed classroom and go ahead and get them what they need right there. Because think about how much time they lose when they have to go through all of this formalized process. We know that can take upwards of a year sometimes.
Well, and what I'm noticing now is there's actually a couple programs that kind of go against the way that I've been taught to teach reading.
Mm-hmm.
Very phonemic oriented, very kind of what my mentors call spit and grunt. and it's hard to kind of, it's almost like you'd rather they didn't learn anything than learn the negative piece, because it's really difficult to kind of go against the grain on that stuff. But some of these programs are national programs, and they're really well accepted on the schools level. So how do you kind of get around that? Are there other programs that are available through Learning Ally? And
Yeah, so, well, first of all, let me just say one of the things that we are advocates for is that we got to teach kids to read. We absolutely, and we need to go to the science to understand what works. And it's that evidence-based, it's that structured approach to literacy in order to teach kids to read. But guess what? That takes time, especially for students where we're rewiring their brain. We're creating those new neural networks in their brain. It takes time. And these students are going back to the classroom and I can't read the assigned text that you've given me. So that's where that audiobook comes in and provides that perfect snap in, give you access to grade level content right there. It's really this whole, it's not one or the other, it's a both and approach.
right, and I think, and parents need to know that the audiobook is not the solution. It's part of the process to help them capture the information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about. Some of the parents want reading to be one of these quick fixes, and it's just not. It's not. It's you have to immerse the child in the process. You have to teach them right, and really, honestly, you have to spend time with them, right?
You do, absolutely. And you got to think about their social emotional development, their motivation. Because if you're a struggling reader, you don't want to read.
No.
Last thing you want to do. So you got to build them up. You got to breathe a little bit of life and understanding into them about why we even need to be readers. So there's a lot that goes into it.
So do you have a lot of different different content and different resources, and so that there's different avenues for entertainment and so information and so on and so forth?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got like our catalog is over 80,000 titles, and we know, and it's textbooks, novels, literature. I mean, it's fun stuff too, because let's face it, when you've got an elementary student, they don't want to read their science book, right? That's the last thing they want to do. They want to read Dog Man. That's what all the kids are reading. We want to read Dog Man. So we've got those popular titles, and those are the hooks that get kids, oh my goodness, this reading thing is kind of cool, and get them involved. And then we've got all kinds of supports for parents and educators about, how to integrate this into your home environment, how to integrate this into your teaching methodologies in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, maybe talk a little bit about that too now in, the new kind of COVID world we're living in, and how we're doing a lot from home. I mean, I could see this needed more now than ever when, parents are more responsible for the learning that's going on at home, and it's almost like a full-time job.
Yeah, it really has transformed things. And, I will say one of the major barriers that we've seen, schools have seen, families have seen, is the technology and the internet access. So, you got to have a piece of technology, but here is the beauty is I mean, it could be on your phone. It could be on your phone. You know, most families do have phones, and you know, as long as I can find some Wi-Fi, get a book downloaded, then I'm off and running. You know, especially while libraries are closed right now. You know, we're not getting access to books. Not that a struggling reader is running off to the library, you know, but that it's so accessible, and creating that equity that I know is on the forefront of everybody's minds right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So, you know, just listening, both sons still have specials, and they went, you know, to library the one day virtually. And it just blew my mind that, you know, the librarian, and this is nothing against her, but she said, you know, yeah, hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have access, you know, online access to some of those books. And I was like, you know, I know there's the library is not all virtual or all not all digital, but it's amazing that they just didn't have the access to audio or video books that we could utilize for right now.
Well, and Brian, that plays into what we are hearing so much: learning loss, learning loss, learning loss.
Mm.
And that term kind of rubs me the wrong way. And here's why. Because it is almost an indicator that we are placing blame on teachers, placing blame on families. Oh, look at you, you're not doing what you're doing, this learning loss is occurring. Or placing blame on our students. Like, oh, well, they're just not smart enough to, you know, keep up with everything. And here's what it is. I don't have access to materials, and I've been out of practice. So think about professional athletes who go down with an injury, who, you know, I think Serena Williams, who, you know, was out for a while with her tennis career. And when you're out of practice and you come back to it, yeah, there's going to be some loss of skill. Yeah. But not like we need to be placing blame on anybody. Darren, it goes back to what you said. Let's get back in the routine. Let's get back into practice. Provide the access and spend time working on skill, spend time on reading.
Yeah, and that one, I think those are the parents that are most bothered by all of this, or the parents that haven't been spending that much time with their kids, to be honest with you. You know, if you're constantly running, and this situation is forcing you to be in that home environment, you know, you can make the best out of it, or you can see it as kind of almost like a trap. You know, let's be frank. You know, there's a lot of divorce happening as a result of all this. You know, and you're in the moment. But it's like, and let's talk a little bit about what I know you're really enthusiastic about is reading in general, and like, and I know we've stepped away from the whole intention of it. You know, creativity and getting all of this knowledge and imagination and you know, remember the reading is fundamental.
Yeah. Right.
And it really is. And so, you know, how did you do some of the literacy work when you were working in the prison? Like, what sparked your enthusiasm?
That's a great question. I've got to say it really was more when I started working for Learning Ally, you know, and there, you know, I was the person standing behind the table at the booth at the conference, you know, and I kept thinking to myself, I need to be in those sessions. I want to hear what they're talking about there, because I just have this natural knack to want to be a learner. And so, you know, went back, you know, I want to be in there, and started learning and reading myself. And I had to figure out, even for myself, what motivated me to be a reader. You're not going to find me sitting down with the next best novel. That's not what I want to do. Mm-hmm. What you're going to find in my hand is an educational book, a self-help book, you know, what can I do to learn and improve type of a book. Now, I know that's not for everybody, but that's what motivates me to be a reader. So then I went and got my certification as an academic language practitioner, because I thought, okay, I need to know how to teach reading. And now I'm working on my Ph.D. in literacy, because I felt like I needed to go, what does the research say, and just dig in full force.
Mm. Yeah, that's, well, you're in full force.
Oh, trust me, I am.
You know,
Yeah.
it's interesting that, you know, you have the criminal justice background, because there is so much illiteracy and dyslexia and really strong learning disabilities correlated to, you know, the prison population. And I would imagine that Learning Ally, as a charitable organization, you know, works with other endeavors, like, you know, like the prison system and other, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that school to prison pipeline, we hear about it all the time. I mean, statistics are thrown out. The most commonly shared characteristic among inmates is a learning disability.
Right.
You know, and it breaks my heart when you've got these kids in school and my weakness is on display every single day. I mean, think about that. Something that you're not good at, and you have to go to a place where it's on display 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Would you want to go do that? I wouldn't. And you've got kids that are causing behavior problems, absenteeism, dropout, all of these things. And it's easier to kind of turn to some alternative behaviors than have myself exposed in that way.
Well, it's interesting because, like, some people, sorry, Brian.
That's right.
You know, the some people actually use reading as a punishment, right? So go upstairs and read, or
Yeah.
you know, some of the old school. I remember when I was teaching, like, you know, some of my least favorite teachers along the way were the ones that said, you know, you read a paragraph, next kid reads the next paragraph, you read the next paragraph, and that still exists, which shocks me. You know, it's like almost like you're trying to embarrass the kid by their level of reading, and then what you're really doing is suppressing that desire to want to do it, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Brian.
No, that's okay. I mean, I kind of wanted to just dive into, you know, how does it work? How does, you know, what do you see? What's the path? And then kind of what do you see on the other end as kind of like results?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. So if I could bottle up all the emotion, the results, the things that we get to hear every single day and pour that joy out on the world, I wish I could. Because when you've got kids, I mean, we've had people, I want to make a hashtag, Learning Ally changed my life. Because no matter where I go in this country, I hear educators, I hear parents, and I hear kids say that exact same line. Learning Ally changed my life. Because the minute that they get the app on their device, download a book, open it up, and they read along with that human reader, they say to themselves, oh my goodness, I never knew that I could be a reader. They start to see themselves differently. And we've even had kids say, I'm not really dumb, because they believed they were dumb when they couldn't decode where everybody else around them were decoding the words. And outcomes, I mean, we've seen teachers report to us, parents report to us. I've got kids that have grown 1, 2, 3 years in their reading growth because they were exposed to words. And what's happening is a lot of educators, and I'm not blaming educators and I'm not blaming families do this too, is I've got a 7th grader that's decoding on a 3rd grade level. So I think the book that I need to give them is a 3rd grade because, that's all that they can, quote, read. Mm-hmm. Think about what it's doing for their self-esteem. And so bringing kids down to leveled content is not doing anything for them intellectually. Now, you need to do that if you're working on explicit skill. Okay, there's a purpose for it. Right. But you want to increase knowledge. If you want to create access to words, exposure to rigor and vocabulary, you got to bring the kids up to the content. And you do that with audiobooks.
Interesting. So you brought up something, you said read along. So is this the kind of book where you're looking at you see the words and you see the highlighted, and you're actually, it's not like an audio tape where you're just listening to a story. You're actually reading along with them.
You're actually reading along with our novels. You've got the words on the page, you've got highlighting, you can make all kinds of personal adjustments. I want pink highlighting, I want blue highlighting. Oh, I'm going to change the size of the font of the letters. You know, I can bookmark things, I can look up words. So what's cool about that is, you know, a lot of kids may not know definitions of words, and I can click a word, pops up a dictionary definition, and right there embedded, I can, you know, start to do some vocabulary development.
Yeah, so it moves along the lines from just being entertainment to, or data input to semi-intervention.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah,
It's an integrated learning tool.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I use Audible. I love all, you know, that kind of stuff, but it's not. I mean, they're not giving me the visual along with the audio. So this is, you know, I'm actually seeing it as I'm and holding. So more than likely, it sounds like a tablet is probably the best one to use with
Yeah.
this program.
Absolutely. You know, with the spacing and everything, I mean, you can do it on your phone. It sizes your phone, but it's kind of small. But you know what? It still works. But like an iPad, a Chromebook, you know, those things, absolutely, that's a great way.
So what do you see as far as like advancements from the in the tech world, where, you know, and then this whole idea that you're doing is somebody thought of it years ago and it was a crazy idea, right? So
Exactly.
what do you think's coming our way that we're not really cognizant of?
You know what? I see a world, especially that we live in today, this whole notion of digital literacy. I mean, you know, I mean, think about it. I don't know how old your kids are, Brian and Darren, but like, you know, I text with my friends, right? But my kids, they don't text each other. They're like Snapchatting or whatever. You know, the advancements in technology are changing the way that we access the world and we access content. And there's so much content. And we got to keep up with where kids are, the learning. I mean, even gameplay with gaming with kids. Think about the literacy, think about the reading that happens even in gameplay. You know, the worlds that we go and visit, and you know, there's so much out there when it comes to digital literacy. And even at Learning Ally, I mean, we are investing in what we need to do with our app to keep up with where kids are. Like, we're working on creating, you know, the whole badging and giving you kudos and recognition, and you know, some of those little nuggets that they might find in gameplay.
Keep them, to keep them interested in rolling forward. You know, I mean, what's definitely true is that words and numbers aren't going away.
No.
Right? we're always going to need that. We're human as we are, you know.
But it's crazy how consumption the way we consume it is changing. And look, I mean, just like what I said to you in our follow-up email from today, it's like 6 months ago, we weren't keeping the video on. We would create the audio and we'd be off to, you know, the podcast feed. And now it's like people are consuming podcasts and audio in so many different forms that they want the video, and they, you know, it's just how quickly we've changed in the last 6 to 8 months is, I guess, my point there.
So is there from a practical perspective on the website, you know, the books are all laid out. Is there a search mechanism? Like, you know, can you put in a keyword, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. So you can search by author, you can search by title, keyword. We've even got different curriculums that you can look at there on the website and say, oh, we're using this particular curriculum, all of the books that are aligned to that curriculum, those anchor text. I can search by category, because when you're working with struggling reader too, you ask them, oh my goodness, we got you an audiobook. What do you want to read? They got nothing, because they've never had to think about reading. So they don't know what they want to read. And, you know, that way, that whole search, we even offer recommendations of like, here's a great place to get started.
Awesome. Yeah, we're constantly looking for like places to go to get more information. And we, you know, as Sound Foundations for Parenting, that's where we want to be. We want a resource that parents can go to, one place to kind of figure out where to go from there, because it's a hard decision to make. So this is this is great for that, for sure.
And I see that. So I see on your site. So if I'm as a parent and want to sign my child up, so it looks like you for $135 for an annual subscription, so like $11.25 a month. That would get me in essentially into a membership.
Absolutely. And you can, I mean, that's however many books you want. It doesn't matter. You want some books, download 80 books. Not that you would, but you have the option if you want to.
And again, I mean, remind people that, listeners, that you guys are a nonprofit. I even see there's an opportunity if someone wanted to volunteer. And I'm assuming that's to utilize their vocal cords.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, and it runs, that's the thing. I mean, most of our listeners, I'm thinking, are really on the younger side of having younger children, but there's even opportunity for students that are older and even college age, correct?
Oh, yes. We go all the way through college. And, there's even adults that still continue to use access to Learning Ally. Yeah.
Wow. Great.
And I'm looking at how you can help. You can sponsor a student, you can honor someone special, and that's the thing about working for a charitable organization is there's a lot of ways to help. And I think
and that volunteering. I mean, we work hard to match up the tone, the texture, the dialect of a voice to the character in the book. Because I'm going to tell you, we get in the car to go on a road trip. And my husband's like, oh, let's find an audiobook. I mean, he will immediately turn it off if that reader is not what he thought or expected. You're both shaking your heads.
Yeah.
So, we don't want Diary of Anne Frank with some, 50-year-old man reading that book. It's not going to match.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't match up.
Awesome. Yeah, this is really good stuff, and we're glad to know that you guys are out there, and that that our parents can take an action into this in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll include all this information in the show notes as well. But so your website though, give that to us just once.
Yep, learningally.org.
Okay, great. And like I said, I can't stress enough for people to check it out. Just not only solutions for school, but for home. Like I said, kind of in this new situation that we're in, there's definitely resources up there. I see you guys also have, a Facebook group for parents, and an opportunity for support there as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you that Facebook group for parents, those parents are off the chain on that Facebook group. What happens is a parent gets on there and says, man, I've got an IEP coming up and this, and I'm not sure what to do. You will have so many responses with information, input, guidance. So our parent chat in that Facebook group is so good. So supportive.
Wow.
Great stuff.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. And you got a symposium coming up in December.
Yes.
Correct?
We do. Yeah. So we do 2 a year, Spotlight on Dyslexia in June. And this year we had over 9,000 educators. There were some parents there, and just bringing high quality professional learning where you can come that day and get access to the recordings. Now we've got one coming up in December, on December 4th, Spotlight on Early Literacy, because at Learning Ally, we are hyper focused on smashing that reading divide that's out there in the country right now.
Awesome.
Great. Well, yeah, we'll definitely, once that kind of registration opens up, we'll have to get a link to share with our folks. And like I said, we'll share all that info too with them in the show notes. Well, Terrie, thank you very much. We appreciate the time you spent and all the information you gave us today. Terrie Nolan from Learning Ally, we appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast with your hosts, Darren and Brian. Find them on social media at Sound Foundations for Parenting. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast.